Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of PIER Talks, where we are going to talk about different topics in recovery. My name is Martin. I'm with the PIER Recovery Community Center in Newport, and today we are going to be talking about healthy relationships in recovery. I think it's an ongoing thing, how to keep people in our lives without, messing things up. And, because I know when we're drinking and using, it can be quite scary sometimes to keep people in our lives. But, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Sarah once we come back from this break. Hi, everyone. This is Martin, your host for today's podcast. And today I have Sarah with us. And, Sarah, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Sarah. I'm a peer support specialist here down at the PIER. And I'm going to talk about healthy relationships.
Nice. Well, we're really looking forward to this because I think it's always an ongoing process of how to keep healthy relationships. People in your life that want to be a part of, of our lives today. It can be really hard to keep people around sometimes. So, Sarah, tell me a little bit about you. You're a person in recovery, right?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your recovery. Like, how long have you been in recovery? What were your relationships like when you were using? And what are your relationships like now?
Well, I've been in recovery for about 2.5 years now. And my relationships while in active addiction, they weren't relationships. Right. They were settling for someone that I could relate with my drug use. It was very manipulative relationships, either me manipulating someone or someone manipulating me. But in recovery, I've found, I had to work on myself to have a healthy relationship with other people and evaluate whether the relationships that I had were healthy or not.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a big part of, active addiction. There's a lot of manipulation. I just recently heard something where, do you know what the difference between influencing someone and manipulating someone? So, when you influence someone to do something, both parties benefit, but when you manipulate, it's only going to benefit the person that's, manipulating. So, I think more of a trauma-informed word is to say sometimes addicts and alcoholics in active addiction, we can be very creative on how we, get and need things. So, I love that you talked about that. That's really awesome. So, tell me a little bit about, you and I have talked briefly about this, but tell me a little bit about emotionally responsive.
Well, being emotionally responsive is a huge key that I found in healthy relationships for myself. Actually being present in the moment. And to be emotionally responsive, you respond to other people's emotions, or they respond to your emotions. And there's actually value in what you say. What you say matters to them. And that's a key component in a relationship, is when you feel like you're talking to someone and they're on their phone or they're not hearing a word that you said about how you feel, you don't feel connected with them.
Right.
So them responding to your emotions in a good and healthy way helps you communicate with them. And being emotionally responsive can mean accessibility. They're there for you when you call, when you need them, or they're there with you through the good and the bad and willing to talk it out with you, or they're very engaged in the relationship to where you are a priority, not just the things that they have to do.
Yeah. So, Sarah, are you in a, this goes for all sorts of relationships, right? So coworkers, friends, neighbors, intimate partners. Now, Sarah, are you in an intimate relationship? Do you have a person in your life that you are intimate with, or you connect with?
Yes, I have a partner.
Okay. So I take it you use these same tools in your relationship.
Yeah, I used this in my relationship and in my family relationships when I was going back to build new relationships with them and try and start over. And I used communication a lot when I was rebuilding the family relationships, because I had to communicate what I did wrong in the situations and how I felt, and needed to listen to their communication to me with their communications to me of how they felt in the situations. And in my intimate relationship with my partner, communication is, we use communication. We share how our day was so that when we come in a bad mood, they aren't wondering why. And so when we communicate our emotions, it tends to help us better understand where they're coming from with how they feel for that day.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that. Yesterday, when I came home, my partner had a really busy day. I had a really busy day yesterday. And we came home and we just were not present with each other. And we picked up on that. And he just said, "Hey, I had a really busy, stressful day." I said, "I did too." I was like, "Let's go ahead and get this all out and talk about it." By the end of the night, we were cuddling, eating dinner, watching movies. And you're right. I like that you talk about just letting each other know how you're feeling and what's going on, because you can change your perspective on things. So, what do you feel like as a person in recovery? Now, is your partner in recovery as well?
Yes.
He is as well. Okay, cool. So, what are some things that, can you think of a time that there was maybe a challenge in your relationship, maybe a lack of communication with a certain situation, and how you were able to use these tools to kind of work through that?
Every day it presents. We have two small children, and so when one of us tells the child they can go play outside and don't communicate that to the other, it tends to put blame on one parent. When we don't communicate what the rules are and have them set. Okay. So we've been moving a lot, and we don't communicate what our plan is for the day. Sometimes we wake up with two different plans for the day and plans of action to accomplish our goals, and our goals are different. And we lacked on sharing that during the move. So one of us would be working on packing something, and the other one's already ready to move stuff. And it made for some friction during the moving process because I didn't express to him what I thought was important.
Well, moving can be stressful just in general.
Yes, you're already in high tensions. But when we didn't express what our importance and our goal was for that day to each other, we're both working on separate things and mad at the other for not working on what we think is important. So when we sat down and had that discussion of, hey, here's how I saw the day going, and this is what I had planned out, and the other person shared that, we were able to combine both of our goals together, and it made for a much smoother move for the next day.
I like that you guys were able to kind of have that conversation of, this is how I see things working, and they say, well, this is how I see things working. Is there conflict here? Is there a disagreement? Are we on the same page? It just starts a healthy conversation. So, one of the things I've heard many times with people in recovery is we can have very poor boundaries in early recovery. And I think that just comes from us just not knowing how to connect with people without drugs and alcohol. So, what do you have for us in terms of healthy boundaries with maybe your partner or a friend or a neighbor or a coworker? How important it is to have healthy boundaries with people?
Well, with boundaries, I see you have to go into the situation with having your own personal boundaries, showing yourself some self-respect and knowing where to draw the line of uncomfortability, knowing what triggers you, and setting a boundary up there to show your self-respect as to not let that happen, and also clearly communicating your boundaries to the other person, whether it be a partner or a family member. Even if you've crossed that boundary before and you're no longer comfortable with it, it's okay to go back and say, well, I used to ride in the car with you, but I no longer feel comfortable. So that's a part of my boundaries. You do not cross that. And sometimes I like to to envision it, think of boundaries as a bubble that you put around yourself. And inside that bubble is your self-respect. You will not step out of that bubble and out of your self-respect. And you will not let anybody step into your bubble into disrespect.
Yeah. I really like that vision of the bubble because it's like a safety net. You know what I mean? Wow, that's really cool. So what suggestions or advice do you have for people maybe that are in recovery and looking to just, mend some relationships? Because as you know, we come into, recovery with just, we were running rampant and we hurt our family, we hurt our kids, and maybe we've lost the trust of our loved ones. And, how do we rebuild those relationships while maintaining recovery, not drinking, not using?
Start small. For me, it would be reaching out with a text so I don't have to have that face-to-face contact and feel the shame and the blame. I've crossed you before, but starting small with just, hey, how are you doing? To start a conversation and see if that line of communication is going to be open to build a relationship at all. And there's also evaluating whether you feel comfortable enough in your recovery and able to maintain sobriety if you reconnect with that person. Also evaluate if that relationship before using was even healthy in the first place. Because if there's unhealthy people out of your life right now, you don't want to bring those unhealthy people back in. So being self-aware and having self-respect for yourself before you start to mend these relationships and knowing if it's good for you or not.
Yeah, I like what you had to say because, I know for when I got sober, I just wanted to fix all of my relationships just overnight. And it took me a while to regain the trust of my family and my friends back because I'll get 3 months sober, 6 months sober, a year sober. But it wasn't until my life just started coming together did my family and friends trust that, hey, he has a pretty good shot of staying clean and sober through this. So, yeah, I think, and I also think that when we're drinking and using, we ghost. We just disappear. So when we send those little texts to say, hey, I'm doing okay, hopefully you're doing well, it lets them know that we're present. Because I know for me, when I'm using, I just disappear. Yeah. They're on the urge of putting my face on a milk carton, and then I come crawling back in weeks later, needing help. So, yeah.
It's definitely being patient with them and understanding. There comes a point to where you have to stop understanding your own problems and what you feel has been done to you and understanding from the other side. And if they're not ready to forgive and let you back in, you have to be okay with that and find a way to be, or at least be patient until they see all the moves that you're making for recovery.
So in the beginning of this, you talked about good communication being, the heartbeat, the backbone of any relationship. Can you think of any other qualities that you think are really important in relationships? I know honesty is a big one, integrity. Can you think of anything else, or do you want to touch on integrity or honesty?
Honesty and trust. If someone's not honest with you, then you can't trust them. And I feel like trust and honesty go hand in hand. If you're open and honest with someone, that lets them into your emotions and what is really going on with you, and you aren't so closed off to them because you don't have to hide a lie. And trust, if you don't give trust, you're not going to receive it from someone. building trust takes time, but there should be a certain level of trust that is already given.
Like already established trust.
Yes.
Just by doing the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And then over time, yeah, it's, I think of like people in my life that, I have a friend who I recently just kind of had to let go. I had to break up with a friend. I've never broken up with a friend before because I give people multiple chances. But this person just continued to just take and take and take in the relationship. And, and just not showing up and canceling and just unreliable. I mean, just a great example of an unreliable friend. And over time, I just couldn't trust this person to be there for me if I needed something. And I've set multiple boundaries. The boundaries would get crossed. But just that basic trust of, if I share something with you, let's keep it between us. Or if you say you're going to be somewhere, make sure you show up. And if you cancel, reschedule or something, and it's just, it's really hard it's just really hard sometimes to maintain healthy relationships with people. I think when you find a really good friend or you find your partner or you have a family member that's really supportive, I think it's so important to invest in that relationship, so I really like what you had to say, but we are running out of time, Sarah, and I'm really, really happy that you stopped in today. And this is the fourth video we've done for the month of November, and it's the last one. Oh, I know. But yeah, if you want to get connected with us at Mental Health America and the PIER Recovery Community Center, you can visit our website at PIERRCC.org. And yeah, thank you, Sarah, for being here today, and you did a great job.
Thank you for having me, Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can visit us at PIERRCC, or you can visit us online on our website, PIERRCC.org. Have a great day, and happy Thanksgiving.